At the Special Library Association's 2015 annual meeting in Boston, and continuing the theme of last year's successful session, Adapt, Act, and Thrive, Lucidea convened a panel of visionary information professionals for the second in our Hot Topics series on the sustainable library. Cindy Moon Barna, Jennifer Hermson, and Karen McQuillan all know that adapting includes accepting, responding, and reacting positively to change, even creating change, and ultimately ensuring that it works in the library's favor. Join us now for the video production of Building the Resilient Library, Leverage Change, and Become Indispensable.
Good morning, everyone. My name is David Gonn. So let me begin by introducing Lucidea, a name that many of you may not be familiar with, but you should be familiar with the brands and products that we bring to market. Lucidea was born out of the aggregation of several very successful ILS library and knowledge management solutions. They are the brands that many of you may actually already use or be familiar with, and they include Sydney, InMagic, Quadrastar, Lookup Precision, Lawport, and Argus. And Lucidea is an organization focused on leveraging those products, building synergies between those products and the customers that use them, and helping the world redefine how knowledge is shared. I would like to actually turn the floor over to Phil Green, our moderator, so we can begin today's discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much. So with that, what I'd like to do is we're going to dive right into the panel discussion, and we're going to start this by kind of talking about a resilient library. So in this day and age, you only know one thing, that change is in fact constant. That's really what the framework for, from at least my perspective, what the conversation today is going to be about. Jenny?
Well, I think it means adapting to the business challenges and the needs that that you're faced every day. I think you really need to evolve and repurpose your skills to serve your organization's goals. And I think a lot of times we forget maybe what our company's mission and vision and values are. And I think if you take a few moments to always remember that, you can start to focus what you're doing every day to meet those, to try to help promote those goals and promote that vision and meet the needs of the company.
Karen?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You just have to adapt to all the changes. Make sure that you know about the goals and objectives, read them over, and see how you can provide value based on what those goals and objectives are, and includes the mission and whatever else is important to the company. So we're able to do that just by getting out there and finding out what people need and making sure that you offer ways in which they can use your services to make their job easier, because that's what it's all about. It's just making their life easier.
Cindy?
And I would need to echo the comments of my esteemed colleagues here. You know, you really need to be open to reinventing yourself, reinventing your organization. As a leader, you know, mentor your teams and maybe those younger professionals under you who see the change and get a little freaked out by it. Keep an eye on the long view, and always keep yourself, you know, aware and involved in the long-term strategic planning of your organization. We also, you know, obviously keep an eye on our customers and follow those trends to see what they're asking. And the last thing I would say is, you know, be open to the opportunity that it is.
Can you tell us how your library has evolved along with the business?
My department has changed is, well, now I have 3 employees instead of just me. That's a big change. But it started as a records center, so we were really just the records management. Our CEO came to us and said, we have too many scientists around the world repeating the same experiments. So that's when we put in the first records management system. And that was a huge investment from, I think, from our company. So the records management and then the library that was kind of really the birth of the library, I guess I would say. So that's kind of how it started.
So it sounds like, you know, you had kind of leadership from top down behind you in terms of expanding your knowledge management role. So what happened specifically in kind of in 2012?
The licensing for our records management system was really too expensive for us to expand it. to the entire company, and as well, we were just burned out on making Lotus Notes databases so we could connect everything together. So we really did look for a portal or a solution, a library that we could really use. So that kind of started our single point of access campaign. And from there, we looked for technology to really connect all the people to that information.
So what were the goals of single point of access?
We wanted to get people access to that intellectual property to generate more ideas and make more money for the company.
So what was in the records management system? Why was it so important? Why did you really need to expand that access?
So in our records management system is all of our intellectual property. So it ranges from all of our methods to our trials, and it really tells the story of our products from the formulation to customer insights for the sales team and the marketing team. So we really needed a place that, again, everyone could get to.
What were the business drivers behind that expansion? Was that around revenue objectives, cost savings?
Yes, absolutely. You want to always look at both the hard costs, so the hard ROI, and then the soft ROIs. And our biggest part of the story was really a process improvement. We were spending a lot of time trying to get that information and wasting time. I think we ended up saving in the first year, it was over $200,000.
Great.
So we were able to just basically show,
money.
it was significant.
So how did you end up unlocking the vault and accomplishing a single point of access?
Well, we went and we worked with a vendor, and we created a social library. We're using the Presto product, and we were able to. It was really just kind of interesting. It was not only the technology, but also the marketing part of it, and just really figuring out what people were wanting or how they wanted to access their information and how they wanted to get to it. It had to be secure. It had to contain everything. Everybody wanted single sign-on. So there's all these things that go into it.
What were some of the technologies you looked at other than Presto?
Oh, well, we looked at SharePoint, of course, and we looked at some things by Google. I can't remember the name of the product, but the biggest thing for me was that it had to be as little involvement from IT as possible. I really wanted to be able to administer and control it on my own. So that was definitely one of the requirements.
And you're expanding into SharePoint. What are some of your goals with SharePoint?
We still have that problem of collaboration. So now we have the information in one spot, and we have it where people can get to it, which is amazing. Now we're struggling with kind of the collaboration. As a global company, we have a team of salespeople in India that are working on monogastrics, and then we have some people in Des Moines, Iowa that are also working on it. How can we get them to collaborate on the same document and be able to work on the same project? So it's got different goals, but I think it'll all work really well together.
So lastly then, how do you garner support for your ideas within your organization?
What I personally do is I try to get involved in global meetings. I try to get in front of as many decision makers or executives as I can. And I try to tell the successful stories of what we've had. So especially with this salesperson, I've really reached out to the owner of our company and said how many people have looked at it. It's been successful. This is really great. So really just trying to, I guess, market yourself is really important and get in front of those people that can help your department and help you and your team keep going.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So we're going to turn to ETS at this point. So can you give us some early drivers who changed the library?
I was really lucky because back in 1983, I worked with a person who really saw the vision of libraries being more electronic. And at that time, we had Arlen. I don't know if anybody in this room remembers Arlen. Yeah. So, yeah, yay, Arlen. So We used Arlen as our internal card catalog, and it was kind of like what WorldCat is today, where you did a search and you found everybody's results. And our code was NJEE, I still remember that. So you had to look and make sure that NJEE had the book. Well, this is when you had one computer that people came in and used, and they didn't even have a computer on their desk. Like if they wanted to look it up, they had to actually physically come to the library. And then they'd come and they'd see a book and they'd say, oh, can you get this book off the shelf? Well, no, because it's only held by University of Michigan, because that's the only code there. So we decided that we needed to have an internal card catalog pretty quickly. And also, we have a collection of more than 25,000 test instruments in our library. We're the largest test collection in the world. And how do we know this? Because nobody's come and said we're not. Because you know if somebody else had it, they'd be breathing down our neck. And we did do some work. We looked to see what boroughs had, and they only have about 7,000 tests in their collection, so we do have the largest. And we needed a place to catalog that information. That's when we first turned to Sydney, again, back in 1987, because believe it or not, they had a field that could hold 250 characters. And that was like a big deal, because you had to, I don't know if you remember OCLC, you search for a book, had 4 characters, 332, you know, it's really weird stuff that used to go on. But having a field with 250 characters for an abstract was a driver for us to go with Sydney. So that's when we used that as our internal database. So we've been with Sydney since then.
What are some of the other changes going on in the library more recently?
Our test collection database that I mentioned is available externally, so you can search that from our website. There's a screenshot of it up there. It's called TestLink. So from the ets.org site, you can get to it from our products and services link. And we also were asked by our research department to create a database of the works of ETS authors, which we didn't have available before. So this is kind of with connection. People knew that we had a library, that we would do this kind of work. They knew that we had databases. But the original question that came to me was, do you think that you can engage with one of your vendors to create a subsite for just ETS? Like, would Thomson do this for you? And I thought, there's nothing against Thomson, but I thought, I don't think they're going to do that for us. I don't think they're going to take the time and effort to create the subsite. And it was just the flexibility that Sydney had in order to get that done. Because while Sydney has its own interface, our folks wanted to brand it with an ETS interface. So we were able to do the work in the Sydney enterprise and then bring that over into the ETS interface, which really works well.
So what were some of the other changes that happened at the staff level after you implemented the ILS? Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of the stuff that we have, we used to do searching for people, and now it's a lot more self-serve, although we will do searches for people upon request. I think it's really important to find that balance, because you don't want to turn people away just by saying do it yourself. But you also don't want to be inundated with the simple questions, so we kind of even that out. But because we have more self-serve databases for the people, if you will, it's able to free up the librarians' time to do more in-depth work for our staff.
Karen, I understand that the library is also playing a pretty important role in collaboration at ETS.
Mm-hmm. So we support Yammer. We have the internal kind of Facebook that's called Yammer, and through that we disseminate news throughout the organizations. If anybody's heard me speak here at SLA, we started our news dissemination as a SharePoint site originally. But when we instituted Yammer, it's about 2 years ago, we decided that that was a better way to post news stories, because then people could more easily comment on them. It was much easier to just put up a link, because Yammer renders the title and the link automatically within its site.
That's great. Now, your group is heavily involved in the SharePoint side of things. Mm-hmm. What do you do there, and why, again, are you kind of so heavily involved in SharePoint, where, again, that sounds more like an IT kind of a thing? So we got involved in SharePoint because our chief learning officer, who's also a VP, his mantra is anthropology before technology. Actually, you know, what he's talking about is technology shouldn't be the driver of everything we do.
We should really look at how people do the work. And so, because we're part of the Chief Learning Officers Group, Connect, our role in SharePoint was to kind of see how people do their day-to-day work and then leverage the technology to better fit how people do that work rather than just having technology drive the work.
Great. Now, I understand you're starting to get involved in what you call big data.
Mm-hmm. So one of my team members sits on a team that's in our enterprise resiliency. There's that word again, resiliency. But enterprise resiliency group, there's a team called Information Management to Big Data. And in one of the meetings a month or so ago, someone brought to his attention that they were looking for a big data librarian and asked if we would be interested in taking that on. Yes, I'm interested, but I'm wondering where I'm going to get the staff and time to do it. But again, it's bringing to our library that kind of work. So, you know, another thing that we're looking to do in the future. Because what happened is, at ETS, they do a lot of testing, but there's a lot of results that come out of that test that they use to do further research. So different people will have that data in different places all over the organization. And then when someone else is coming to do research, they don't know where to go to find pre-existing research. So they're going out there and doing some, you know, field work with subjects in order to get tests that might sit in a file that they have access to. So our job is going to be to kind of find where all that sits and bring it together so people can find it. So it's kind of a daunting task, but I'm excited about starting that.
Great, and again, you know, just to wrap up, how do you garner support inside of ETS?
So I'm really lucky that our VP likes library. He loves libraries, and you know, a lot of it's about customer service. So he tells me that when he was a kid, he read every book in his children's library, and he wanted to get an adult library card, and the children's librarian allowed him to get an adult library card. So ever since then, he's loved libraries and librarians. So let this be a lesson that you never know who you're going to affect, or, you know, this customer service. I know Marjorie in the awards section yesterday talked about, you know, rules and bending rules when you need to, and that's exactly, you know, some librarians say, no, you're not until you're 12 years old can you get an adult library card or whatever. It's 18, I don't know what it is. But, you know, he was able to use libraries and leverage them. And then we bring a lot of value back to his organization. So people will come to him and just really sing the praises of our group depending on what work we've done. And
so with that, we're going to move to our last panelist, and we'll open it up for questions. So how did you go from kind of the conversations about whether you were needed to a conversation where you were more critical and you were a resilient library?
When I first joined CASE a couple of years ago, literally the first month, a membership survey came out. Said that only 8% of our members, and there are almost 80,000 of them worldwide, value the info center. For me, that was a devastating statistic. And we really took that as a wake-up call. We're in a major campaign to reintroduce ourselves to the membership. There's actually an email going out at 1 o'clock today that has our shining faces on it for my team, and it says, here, you can do personalized research, and here are all the online resources that you can get to no matter where you are.
So what's some of the self-service content that you're trying to make available to members?
We have, our self-service content actually lives on the CASE website. It doesn't live in our Presto catalog because right now the two aren't really connected. We have something called the Good Question Archive. They are topical collections of resources based on either members' questions or discussions that have happened in the leadership level. Like for board meetings all the time, there's a horizon issue so that the leaders get to talk about, well, this is what my institution's facing, this is what I'm facing. And we're like, oh, we could do a good question on that. These collections include online samples, so if you want to know how Harvard got that $400 million gift, and case resources, as well as, you know, outside resources that members might not have access to full text from us, because we can't afford a site license for 80,000 people, but they can get it at their own institution libraries.
What are some of the things you're doing to create demand and visibility internally?
Internally, the biggest thing we've done in the Case Info Center is we are developing partnerships with the program teams. These programs provide content, so the webinars, the meeting planning, the conferences that our members may attend over the course of the year. They do I think 40 webinars and 65 conferences over the course of the year on all topics related to advancement. And we also develop resource pages. We use an online community platform for a lot of our conferences, so those attendees can have conversations amongst themselves. We can share programs. We also share resources. So we reach out to, the Case website or our own collection, say, hey, you're in alumni relations. Here's a list of things you should be reading. The faculty love it because they don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. Programs loves it because, they're the meeting specialists. They're not the content specialists. Mm-hmm. So they come to us for that kind of information.
That's great. And I understand that kind of IT independence, is a key driver for you to be able to create those new services. Can you talk about that?
Yes. As my colleagues have mentioned, it's very important to have IT like you. And as an association, and I think we could say this of any organization, nobody ever has enough IT staff to do everything everybody wants to do. And our IT staff is small. There's 2 of them. And they have other priorities that don't include my databases. So we were previously DB TextWorks customers. And when we moved to Presto, we went from a local solution, a local server, to a hosted solution, which made my IT department very happy. We built all our own databases, screens, views, metadata, all of that. And when I can't figure out something or something doesn't work, I call Lucidea. Makes my IT department very happy. We can do on-the-fly customizations. I can change out photos. I can change how the home page looks like. Someone comes to me, oh, I want a new database. I'm like, okay, let me, put that together for you, or at least try it out and then take it all back down. And I can do it all myself.
That's great. So what are some other examples of some projects you're able to tackle with that independence?
The 2 biggest areas where we're really starting to see returns on this, Philip and David both mentioned before, we're fairly new customers to Presto. We're still within our first year of being all in. And requests and our photo collections are the 2 biggest areas. Now I have a database in Presto, which is my request database, and the beauty of Presto is it is only limited to Info Center staff. We are not opening it up to the rest of the organization, and we won't open it up to members. IT's happy, once again, because we're getting all our stuff off that email server, and we get to keep exactly what we want, and as much as we want, all the data points I need to not impact Case server space. And now we're in the process where working with our archives, we are the Case archives, but we also store, rather inconveniently, everything in Indiana. Remember, we're in Washington, D.C.? So we are trying to come up with a database just for the photo collections. So instead of one of my staff people spending 2 weeks and a trip to Indiana to look for photos, the goal is when we get to our 50th anniversary, they can just search Case presidents, and there you go.
How do you garner support for your ideas?
We have a new president this year. Our previous president had been with the organization for almost 11 years, and his wife was a librarian. His daughter was a librarian. So I was all excited when I joined Case because he drank the Kool-Aid. He understood what I said when I said metadata. His eyes did not glaze over. He understood the value. He understood why I was asking for why I was asking for. As our new president is getting up to speed, she is meeting with board members, volunteer leadership, other educational institutions, other nonprofit associations in Washington, D.C. and everywhere else in the world. In support of that, we are doing bios. It's given us a great opportunity to show us what we can do. Anecdotally, I've heard, other departments within the organization have said, oh, you're coming to our meeting, here are your bios. And she's like, no, I want the info center version of these. But since the president likes us, not only are we getting more requests out of her, but we're getting more requests out of the regional offices as well.
And I understand you're able to keep a lot of metrics to help
Yes.
garner your support.
And this is why I love my request database. We can do, the basics, number, who's asking, where, we can do subjects, how long it takes, by institution, by what we call a case district. The world is divided into districts for us. We also use Google Analytics to analyze all of our online content collections.
So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to circle back to our final question before we open it up, which is I'd just like to have you talk a little bit about what some of the characteristics of a library leader or a KM professional, that really somebody who gets things done and is a resilient library.
I think everything that everyone said today proves that you're being resilient and you're a good leader. There are so many opportunities to learn more about leadership or about knowledge management, library, et cetera. And I just encourage you to take those opportunities. Always, I think as librarians, we're probably naturally inquisitive and want to learn more things. So take those opportunities. Read the things that come across. Read the things that people are requesting. It really helps you understand the business. So when I get requests for how many cows are in Argentina.
They're going to retire.
Exactly, because they're going to get eaten. I mean,
retire.
Asking why and really looking at all of this information that comes across and you have access to is amazing. And so just taking those opportunities to learn a little bit more about the business and learn how and why the people are making the decisions they're making. And I think that will help go a long way.
Karen?
Yeah, I think it's creativity. It's thinking about the skills and abilities that you have as a librarian and applying them in new ways beyond traditional library work. And getting out in the communications areas that you have, be it Yammer or whatever, and just be out there and make comments and have people comment on your comments, hopefully. I know somebody in our market research area, we kept trying to get her to post, and she wouldn't. So finally, I put something out there once. I wasn't too sure about it, but I'm just going to make this comment. And I was wrong, and she got right on and said, "You're wrong about that, blah, blah." I said, "Yay, I got her to comment." So we got the answer out there eventually. So, it's kind of a sneaky way to do it, but there you go. But yeah, just be creative and listen to what's going on in your organization and offer your services. I know everybody's busy and people say, oh, I just couldn't take on one more thing. But sometimes that one more thing is what's going to make you resilient in the future, and then you can think about dropping maybe something else, or it's not that important. So.
Great. And Cindy?
Get invited to meetings. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there. As a leader of a department, I think it's really important to advocate for your team and to be their champion, because many times the people above you do not understand what you do and how you do it. And it's really important that for yourself, you're advocating for your team, but at the same time, your team knows that you are going to bat for them. One lesson that I learned from a library manager I had a while ago that I have never forgotten is don't ask your staff to do anything you're not willing to do yourself. And if that means shelf reading, that means shelf reading. And sometimes nothing is better than shelf reading on a Friday afternoon. And especially important during change is to keep an open door policy. I tell my staff, I said, you just want to talk about a request, you want to talk about your dog, you want to talk about what's going on that, you know, is impacting your work life. Ask me. You hear rumors, ask me. Because as long as those rumors swirl around, they're just going to get worse. So it's always been, for me personally, very important to share what I know. If I know nothing, I will tell you that. And to be available for questions. Because sometimes for new staff who have new to the profession as well, they haven't gone through some of these changes and they're getting a little panicked, or they have a request that's really hard and a member may not have been as gracious in their response. You need to be open for those conversations in any way that they come.
Thank you to our panelists, to those who attended the session in Boston, and to those of you who have watched this video.